What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Chaplaincy on the Go podcast. My name is Josh Zorhoff, and I'm a teaching pastor and a therapist in the West Michigan area. And this podcast is brought to you by the Fearless Chaplaincy and my good friends at Care Portal. Care Portal is a technology platform that helps individuals at risk of entering into the foster care system stay with their forever family. They utilize church resources, community resources, and groups outside nonprofit organizations to help families get the support and care that they need. We're so thankful for Care Portal and their partnership, and we are excited to have a conversation today about grief and loss and remembering. And with me today is my friend Cindy Nyhoff, and Cindy is going to share a little bit about her story and their family story and a journey that they went through with her son's cancer. And so, Cindy, we're excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to share and to remember Ben and to hopefully bring honor to that, and also to help others as they may be on a grief journey as well.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. Why don't we start, Cindy? Just tell us a little bit about you and your family, and then talk us through how Ben's journey started and where it is now.
All right. Well, I'm married to my husband, Dave, for 43 years, and we have 3 children. Sarah, who is married to Chad and has 2 of our beautiful grandchildren. And then our son, Ben, who's married to Kristen and 2 other beautiful grandchildren. And then when they were teenagers, we had one more son, Adam, who is in his early 20s and our musical theater guy. He lives out in Washington and is looking for opportunities there to be in musical theater. And I started out working in accounting out of high school. I went to Davenport, got an accounting degree, worked in accounting for a number of years, then really felt called to ministry, and served as the care coordinator at a local church for quite some time. Then due to some circumstances, we ended up here at Ridgepoint, and I started back in accounting, and then couldn't stay away from care ministry and ended up back in care ministry here at Ridgepoint, and worked here for close to 10 years, and most recently as it's been 10 years since that concluded, but worked as the care pastor here, loved that, and then felt called to a different season of ministry, and after a few jerks and starts, ended up as the chaplain at Royal Park Place and Royal Atrium Inn here in Zealand, and did that for about 8 years. And then when our son, Ben, was diagnosed with cancer, and when his health journey began to take a significant turn, I retired from that, but I am actually going back to that shortly, and am also talking with you quite a bit, Josh, about opportunities in the chaplaincy here at Ridgepoint, and looking forward to seeing how I might be able to help out there.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride in terms of just your ups and downs in ministry and the different places that you've been to, and you've had a lot of experience with grief and loss from a pastoral side and a chaplain side. And I can imagine, because you were doing chaplaincy work at a nursing home during COVID. Yes. So just briefly, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was that like?
It was, I often say that I'm still recovering. It was from COVID PTSD, and I'm only half joking when I say that, but it was quite an experience. It was a lot harder for a lot of people, or a lot harder for other people than myself. But we had, we were tasked with keeping these residents as safe as we could, and but still trying to give them opportunities to connect with their families. And during that time, of course, regular meetings weren't taking place, but I had a little keyboard, and I would roll that down the hall and have hallway hymn sings and lead hallway worship services, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day. No one went out to their family. And so we did, I think, 12 12 different services in all of the different hallways, and delivered a lot of meals, delivered a lot of mail because the postman couldn't even come in to bring them their mail individually. So took on that role. And but many cherished memories from that time too, with my coworkers and with the residents. But like you said, I've had a lot of experience. I've officiated a lot of funerals and met with a lot of families who have lost loved ones, and tried, walked through that with them. But even that can't prepare you for what it's like to be planning your son's funeral, after a lengthy battle with cancer.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because that's part of the reason why you're here on the podcast. You want to share a little bit about what's going on now after Ben's passing, but for those listening, there's a long journey there, and maybe share a little bit about how it started and what that was like for you, for Kristen, Ben's wife, and the family and the kids, and just take us a little bit on that journey.
Well, I'd just like to share a little bit about Ben and the person that he was. From childhood on, Ben always was concerned about people who didn't have enough food. And when he was 4, 5, 6 years old, the kids would always take turns praying before meals. And Ben's prayer would always be with those who don't have enough food. Help us to help those who don't have enough food. And interestingly, when Ben went to college, it was for nonprofit administration. And he worked at a number of nonprofits. He worked for Feeding America, which was the beginning of his career in serving people who had food insecurity. And then the last 8 years, he worked at Kids Food Basket, an organization in Grand Rapids. It started in Grand Rapids, but now there is actually a farm here on Ridge Point's premise, which he and Scott Potter actually were very instrumental in collaborating to bring that to fruition. A lot of other people as well, but that was a real passion of Ben's to see that farm here on Ridge Point become a reality. And so it was just so interesting to me how his childhood passion became his vocation. And Ben married a lovely person, Kristen, and had 2 boys, one of whom was born just as COVID was beginning to rage, April 1 of 2020. And about that same time, Ben started to experience pain in his knee. And he was a runner, and he was our most healthy, he and Kristen, and we're the most health conscious in our family. Our daughter Sarah often joked, I give my kids Happy Meals and they give their kids, fresh fruit and veggies. And then Ben is the one who gets diagnosed with this aggressive cancer. It just, it's just not fair. But he started to have pain in his knee, thought it was because of running. And so he rested it, and he iced it, and it just got worse and worse. And finally, he went to have an X-ray, and thinking he'd hear that he had a torn ligament or something like that. And immediately, I'll never forget getting this message from Ben. The doctor thinks it's something more sinister. It might be a tumor. It's what? You thought you just had a sprained knee or a torn ligament. And that was in late June of 2020, also in the throes of COVID. And so he, went to all of the biopsies, the preliminaries, and the doctor said, we are not treating this in Grand Rapids. You have to go to Ann Arbor.
Oh, my word.
And so
that's serious.
Yeah, so that's serious. They mixed the chemo, tonic or cocktail or whatever right on site in Ann Arbor. It wasn't anything they could transport, and so he began a journey literally a journey to Ann Arbor 3 days a week. 3 weeks in a row for just being slammed with chemo, because the kind of cancer that he had was usually found in adolescence. And so he was much older than the typical person diagnosed with this. So it was thought that he may have had it for longer. And the concern was that it would travel to his lungs. And so they hit him with all kinds of chemo. And here he is, with two young children, and very young. His son had just been born a few months before. But he did that. My husband, Dave, had just retired, thinking we were going to travel to Israel.
Yes.
And of course, that didn't happen because of COVID. And instead, Dave traveled to Ann Arbor with Ben week in and week out. And but Ben kept working. He worked full time for almost the entire 4 years until just before he passed away in February of this year. But it was a real journey of ups and downs. He had some periods of remission, but then as they had predicted or had said would possibly happen, it traveled to his lungs. And again, he had some surgery and he was in remission for another couple of scans. And then it had spread throughout his lungs and there was no surgery. They kept hitting it with some more chemo. He just kept plugging along. He did everything that was asked of him and more, and with great courage and fortitude, and kept working as an ambassador for Kids Food Basket because that was his heart. And I think that just helped him to have something to look forward to. Right, something to look forward to. And we did a lot of things as a family. And he, whenever he was up for it, he went along. Not that long after he had surgery to remove the tumor on his knee, we walked all the way to the critter barn. And, he just tried to, as much as he could, to participate in life as absolutely fully as he could, and with great courage and fortitude. And his wife, too, just amazing how she held things together throughout all of that. And our whole family really came together, and just tried to be supportive and helpful to each other. And Kristen's family in California as well, just really became a team effort.
So you go through this season of journeying back and forth to U of M. I think you had told me once that Dave drove him. And,
right. Mm-hmm.
And so Dave, retired. Mm-hmm. Providentially, God made it possible for him to take his son to, that's just crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like your dad driving you to your first job,
right?
And yet what a really beautiful time for Dave and Ben. Mm-hmm. And then there's remission, and then there's not, and then there's remission, and then there's not. It's like the cancer yo-yo, they call it,
right?
And you're never really sure. Mm-hmm. And then it gets into the lungs, and then he had to make a trip out to California.
Right. In late September, early October, I remember, because we were driving our son Adam out to Washington, where he was going to live with my sister and seek theater opportunities. We were in the car in Idaho, not far from where Ben's wife, Kristen, had grown up. And we got a text from Ben. It's, the cancer is growing again. And U of M is saying we should look at clinical trials or, experimental treatments. They're kind of at the end of what they can offer. And again, Ben was still working full time at that time. But because of insurance dilemmas and going out of state and going to research hospitals, he had to get different insurance. And that was, I think, Scott Potter was visiting Ben during that time, and he said that he could see that was the dark night of the soul, because everything is a delay. You need to go here to get evaluated, but you can't go there until the insurance kicks in, and the insurance won't kick in until the 1st of December. And then you call for your appointment in December, and then, we aren't taking any appointments over the holidays. The first that we can see you is in January. And Ben, he could just tell that the cancer was advancing rapidly. He was having a lot of pain in his back and just new symptoms. So he did finally get an appointment, ended up with Cedars-Sinai, which is not far from where Kristen's mom lives in California. So they went out to California on Christmas Eve, and his appointment was on January 3. And they talked about some things they could try. There were times of hope, and then, but we can't do this till you've been off chemo for a month. So really, that's when I think that being off chemo for a month and not being able to start something new, Ben started to have where he couldn't breathe well in early February 6th, went into the hospital on a Tuesday and called us and said, I'm not doing well. We flew out. Sarah and Chad flew out. Our son Adam and my sister from Washington flew out. They got there on a Friday evening, only to find that the doctors had said there's nothing we can do. He's being kept alive by life support. And Ben made the decision then that this was not going to turn around. And so we said our goodbyes on Saturday, and he slipped away from us that day. And, a really cool story. Ben was a funny guy. He had a great sense of humor, and he had something to say to each of us when we went to say goodbye. We were all nervous, and he put us all at ease because he had something funny and something powerful to say to each one of us. And, for example, my sister from Washington is a big UW fan, and of course Michigan beat them in the big game. I'm about as averse of sports as you are, Josh. But anyway, he when my sister went to say goodbye, he's like, really sorry that your team lost, but then followed that with something very tender. And the last words that Ben said to me was, Mom, will you pray? And he knew that's what I could offer. That's what I would, and I don't remember what I said, but I prayed over him, and he turned to the doctor and he said, let's rock and roll. And those were his last words to us, and he modeled courageousness to us in the way that he passed. And he had shared with some coworkers when he had to leave his job, how he was very teary, but he said, I'm a man of faith, and I believe God has his plan and purpose in all of this. And we try to believe the same, even though we're left with a lot of questions.
Wow. Wow. That is so shocking, I think, is probably the word that I can think of just, I remember hearing, of everything that was going on. And of course you were posting on social media, and there were updates, and you were writing quite a bit about it as well. And it just, for me, it just felt so sudden. And it's like, whoa, like I can't even get my mind around this. And then of course, then it's final.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Ben, it was obvious that he had been preparing in his mind and for this, in the things that he said. When we got to California, he was just pouring out all of these things he wanted to tell us. I'll cherish those conversations forever, and he even left a little message on his laptop for Kristen that she didn't know was there. They had a real connection over the movie Up, and he left a little picture. It just said open, a file that said open on her laptop. And she didn't see it until a few days after he passed, because he had said, there's where my passwords are, and there's what, but then this was a special little file, and it had a picture of that house with the balloons. And it just said, Kristen, thank you for the adventure. Wow. Now go have a new one. Love always, Ben, And I'll go, that's what happened to us too.
Dang it.
It was lots of, I said that I've never cried so much. I felt like I had blisters under my eyelids, it just, but yet we were blessed to have cherished memories and good memories, and he was a wonderful son. And I told him this. I said, I'm so thankful God gave you to me as my son, because I just he was a wonderful son. All my kids are wonderful, but and I hope I communicate that to them as well.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. As you think about, now it was February, and so
Mm-hmm.
here we are in late August
Mm-hmm.
at the time we're recording this, and you think about just it's the season, the time
Mm-hmm.
that's passed. What have you been thinking about?
Hmm. Well, we had a month to prepare for Ben's service because he was in California when he passed, and family had to get back to Michigan. And so during that time, I just remember thinking, I just really want to not just honor Ben, but honor God, in his in Ben's memorial service. And so we were so thankful for Ridgepoint coming alongside of us and helping us to plan and prepare a wonderful memorial for Ben. And then the memorial is done, and then it's like, okay, now this is life after. Everyone else leaves from the memorial, and so we've been. When people ask how we are, I say we're all right. It depends on the day, but we're moving forward. We're, trying to live life. And, Kristen has 2 little boys who are, going into school, and, she feels the loss the most profoundly, obviously. She's the one who's by herself at night, when putting the kids to bed, but she's very strong, and we're getting the help that we need, to walk through the grief process. And then we are planning this remembrance run. But I want to emphasize that the remembrance run isn't simply about remembering Ben. Years ago, my cousin, Dave's cousin, actually lost their son, Matt Kleinexel. He was a teenager at Hamilton High School, and the community and football team put together a run in his honor called the Rural Rush in Overijssel. And it was always on like the hottest night of June, I swear it was. But we ran in that a number of times, and Ben actually ran in that race and with us a couple of times. And they had stickers that you could put on your back to honor someone that either was battling right now or that had passed. And I just remember feeling that was so meaningful. Dave's mom was fighting cancer at the time, and I wrote her name on my back and my parents' name. And running the race, you could see that on people's back, and it was so inspirational and meaningful to me. And so that's an idea that I've wanted to incorporate into this remembrance run that we're planning for Ben, which will be on Saturday, September 14 at 2 p.m. right here at Ridgepoint over by the Kids Food Basket. The Kids Food Basket barn will be the start and finish, because there's a tree there in Ben's honor that's kind of like our start and finish line. Wow. But Josh, you preached a sermon on Memorial Day weekend that really stuck with me about remember and kind of the meaning of that word. And even Ben having his leg operated on was kind of a dismembering, and then losing him, you feel like a part of you is torn away, dismembered. That's right. And you talked about the how bringing it back together and reflecting is remembering, kind of putting it back together. Yes. And that's really stuck with me. And that's one of the reasons I wanted that word remembrance in the name of the run, because it's kind of a bringing people back together, putting people back together, helping people heal by remembering their loved ones and sharing fellowship together and laughing, crying, those two things, I've never done them both at the same time as much as I have in the last, few years. That's for sure. But,
there's just a few things on that. There's a author. His name escapes me right now. Last name is Wright. It's not N.T. Wright. It's not a Bible scholar, but he's a counselor, and he says that basically grief is all of the emotions tangled into a little ball, and just like you try to untangle a knot, when you pull the loose thread, everything else is going to kind of come with it. And I've found that to be so true. And you're going to laugh and you're going to cry, and it's all going to happen at the same time. And when you remember, you get to, for a moment, put those pieces back together, but then you have to look at them and say, but this is only for a moment. And it's interesting that that definition of remembering. I remember when I heard that for the first time. My wife and I, we were at New Holland Brewing Company. Not a big shocker if you know me. And she got a text message on her phone, and Pike was like, I don't know, he was like a year old, maybe. And the text message just said it was one of her college friends. It just simply said, we regret to inform you that our daughter Lauren unexpectedly passed away. She was like 3, I think 4, preschool age, and she was just gone. And so Christy and I drove down to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we went to the memorial. And the pastor of the church got up and he said, let me tell you about the word remember. And that's where I heard it, that it really means to put things back together. But it's so interesting for you to say that, like, when you lose somebody, that's like a dismembering. And that is so true. And so if you don't remember, then all you have is the dismember.
Right.
And that is just a really crummy place to be.
I remember when Ben was actively passing, I remember Kristen saying this. She said, it just feels like a part of my body is being torn away, and yet minutes later, when Ben's soul had obviously left his body and he was no longer breathing, she instantly felt him, or she said, he's there, he's free, he's healed. She said, I feel it in my being.
The weight was gone.
Right. And obviously that was still followed by many times of anguish, and still is, but she was given that assurance just as clearly. She said, I know it to the bottom of my toes and the top of my head. He's there. He's home. He's free, Wow. And so it really, that's the beginning, I guess, of the remembering. Only seconds really after the dismembering.
Wow. Well, the remembrance walk, remembrance run, that's an opportunity for people who they've lost someone. They've got someone who's
which
sick,
is really all of us, isn't it?
I mean, I forget the whatever the statistic is, but I think it's basically from 10 years old and on, your chances of experiencing death just exponentially increase. So yeah, I think so. I think all of us have lost somebody or know somebody that's the interesting thing about cancer and about suffering in that way. You can walk into a room of 100 people and say how many people have been impacted by cancer in some way, and 100 people will raise their hand. That's where we are right now. So I think it's a really great opportunity for people who knew Ben, people who know the family, but also people who just, they need to remember someone. They need to either run so that they can be reminded of that person, or they can run to encourage that person.
Right.
And there's something really significant about walking or running and what that does for our mind and our body and our soul. But then when you attach that to a person or a memory, there's something about that too. So tell us a little bit about the details of the run.
Okay. Well, as I said, it will be on Saturday, September 14 at 2:00. We put it in the afternoon because we know that that's a time of year when almost everyone has kids in sports in the mornings.
Smart.
And I know there might be a few sports on in the afternoon on TV. I don't know. It's not, nothing
It's not my
significant,
thing, so I
not
wouldn't
U of
know.
M or anything. But, so we get it. People have things going on, and that's totally understandable. This is just for whoever can and would like to gather. And you don't even, it doesn't matter to us if you ever even met Ben or know who Ben is.
Yeah.
This is about people coming together just to fellowship together. And I know walking and jogging has been one of the most therapeutic things that I've been able to do, even before this, but during this, something about getting those endorphins going. It just, and then chatting with a friend. I just went for a walk this morning with a friend who is moving to Florida, and of course we were hugging and crying. It felt a little bit like a dismembering, but I said next time in Melbourne, that's where our next walk will be, and I'm actually meeting a friend after this to go for a walk to kind of map out the trail, and I know. And she lost her husband in a biking accident a number of years ago, and so it's for anyone. And we have a 3-mile 5K route, which I learned is why Ridge Point is called Ridge Point, because there are some hills involved.
Yes.
But that's just we're not. In this inaugural event, anyhow, we don't really have timers, or it's just kind of
just get out there and move,
right? Just get out there and move. But the 5K, there's a 5K route, and then also a 2-mile. And heck, if somebody wants to turn around halfway on the 2-mile and do 1 mile, or if somebody wants to sit in a chair and say rah rah, that's great. We just are looking forward to bringing people together. I am planning to have some of the poster boards that we had from Ben's memorial service with pictures on them. I've taken the pictures off, but I want, if people would like to bring a picture of their loved one, we'll create a new memory board. And then there'll also be the stickers that you can wear on your back. One other thing I wanted to share about Ben, his last words to his sons, his young sons, were, you can be anything that you want to, but always remember to be kind. And we've kind of adopted that as our family mantra. And so we have seen little glimpses. We see that phrase now everywhere where we had not really noticed it before. Lucas went to second grade already, orientation. Ben's son went second grade orientation over at Adams Elementary the other night, and on his door of his classroom it said kindness zone or something like that, and those just feel like little glimpses of Ben that are helping us remember. And so we've adopted that as our family mantra, and strive to live that out. Not always perfectly, for sure, but so that's something that'll be emphasized at this run as well.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Well, we'll have the podcast notes. We'll have the link to the event, and we're gonna be sharing this podcast out with some of the publications through the church as well. And so
wonderful.
If you're listening to this, there's gonna be plenty of information coming, and love for you to come and be a part of it. But Cindy, I think as we close, I just want to maybe give you an opportunity if somebody's listening in and they've got a loved one that is going through a health battle, or maybe they have cancer, or they're working through that. What can you say to encourage them in this journey? What has brought you comfort in all of that?
Well, I think it's different for every family member. For me, for Ben too, worship music was huge in their journey. It still is. Kristen always has worship music on in the background. The boys were breakdancing to Torrin Wells' "Take It All Back," that song that's on now. There were always songs that seem to come on the radio or YouTube or whatever at just the right moment to speak to Ben. And so for them and for me, music is something I immerse myself in. I love listening to worship music. And on the way in today, Gyra was playing on the radio, and that was a song that was sung at Ben's memorial. And so it makes you cry, but it also gives you joy at the same time, you know? And just putting that into your soul, even if you're, worship music and scripture. I love Beth Moore's Praying God's Word and reading those scripture passages kind of as a prayer. The whole Bible, many verses, at least in the Bible, can just be read as a prayer, and so I think, and for us, some people prefer to be more alone or isolated, but for us, it's been important to engage with people, our biggest word, and Kristen says the same thing, and Sarah and Adam, I think, would say the same thing, is if someone says, could we bring over a meal? And even if we've got a fridge full of food, we say yes, because there will be a time when people aren't remembering as much as they are now. If someone says, let's go for coffee, it's yes, and I think just that's been very healing for us, is to fellowship with people and to share with people. And there have been times I've gone out for lunch and I haven't even said anything about it. And the person I'm out for lunch with has something on their heart. But it's still good to be out fellowshipping with people. Yeah. But you know what? When Ben was in his battle, it was hard. It was hard to get up in the morning. It was hard to face the challenges of the day, and it's okay. A friend just recommended a book too about and her husband is battling cancer. It's okay not to be okay, and we kind of have to adjust our expectations of ourselves and others. Another friend said, I feel like when I'm grieving, I'm trying to run through Jello, and that's true. Some days are like that, but not despairing, not. And you do feel despair. I don't know if I'm being helpful in this, but just to allow yourself to feel the feelings, but not to the degree that you isolate yourself and don't allow other people to minister to you and help you. I think would be my biggest words of encouragement.
I think that is incredibly helpful. I think that you don't know what grief is until you've actually gone through it.
Right.
And if it is your first time, you don't know what to expect. And if it's your second time, you still don't know what to expect, because every season of grief is different. But the word of, despair will come, and that's not bad. It just is. And hope will come too, but it may not last as long as you want it to. But you need other people. And whether it is worship or scripture or walking or running, you need something, because the grief's not going to go away. It's just not. So you have to move through it somehow.
My friend who recommended that book, which I have not read as of yet, but she said one thing that the book, It's Okay Not to Be Okay, said was, we often think of, I've got to get through this.
Yeah.
And she said the book talks about, no, you need to tend to this. And because in some ways, a lot of my grief, and when Ben left for California on Christmas Eve, we brought them to the airport. It was early in the morning, and he was in a lot of pain, but he walked, and the boys were walking with their little suitcases behind them, and they were going to be in California for 2 weeks, going to appointments, then come home and then figure out from there. And something in my spirit said, he will not come back. And I did not voice that to anyone. I did not say that to anyone. And then that is what became the reality. But that was my dark night of the soul, I think, and sometimes I feel like I did a lot of that grieving before Ben actually passed.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that something will slam me just when I think I'm, it'll,
just when you think it's safe to get back into the water.
Right. Because Ben it'd be like a second cousin, same age as him, who just passed away in June of a brain tumor. Wow. And 2 young children, and, going to Kyle's service just was word. Like, this, 2 young men, relatives even,
with 2 boys,
right, with 2 children, and this is just, wow. Then that's when it rolls over you again, I guess, wow. And but in the meantime, now Kristen is ministering to Kyle's wife and helping her with some of those things that you don't even think about, that are going to need to be tended to after losing a spouse. And so, and hopefully maybe that even brings some healing, to both of them in some way, to support each other in that way.
Wow. Well, Cindy, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and I'm just so grateful for you and your willingness to share, your transparency. And, our hope is that someone listening finds some encouragement in all of this. And we want to be able to say again, please come to the Remembrance or Run Walk. And if you can, if maybe you live out of Michigan and you're listening, just run on that day for someone that's fine too.
We're planning to do something with Adam because he's in Washington. So I don't know if we're going to, FaceTime around the course but get
a little GoPro or something like that. Yeah,
right. Do totally. Something so that he can take part in that way. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And again, we'll have everything in the podcast notes and the show notes as well. And if this has been a helpful conversation for you, and you'd like to maybe reach out to Cindy and learn a little, maybe learn a little bit from her, or talk about that a little bit, I'm sure she's okay with that. And so
absolutely.
Be happy to send your information to her. You can send us an email at chaplaincy@fearlessfollower.org, or you can go to our website, fearlesschaplaincy.org. We'd love to be able to help you if you're in a season of grief. Reach out if you'd like, and we'd love to get you some information that would be beneficial, and of course, connect you with Cindy if that's what you'd like as well. That's all we've got for now. We will talk with you